Hi, I'm Ollie and welcome to this video, which is the first in a series following our current build, which is called Stanley. We thought it would be useful to follow a build from start to finish to show you guys the processes that we go through, the materials that we use during our van conversions. We've filmed lots of our van tours in the past, but we thought we'd do something a bit different and show you what we get up to week by week, so that hopefully you guys can learn something and help you with your own builds. It will give an overview of all of the methods during that week and will give you a good idea in the order that we complete each conversion. This build series isn't there to offer advice or tuition on how to do it. Instead, we'll just be following the methods and the procedures that we use to convert a van. In this series, we'll be converting a Citroen Relay L3H2, which is called Stanley, and the layout will be same as our Milo model, which is a dinette. If you are interested in what this layout looks like, then you can click on the link below to see the virtual van tour. So step one of the process is the planning phase. Obviously you want to decide on the layout for your van conversion and also what appliances you want to go inside that. It's important before starting the build that you decide on your layout and the appliances that you want to have inside the van, just so that when it comes to things like cutting holes for your inlets and your windows, you know where to begin. One of the first things that you're going to be doing in the first phase is to run all of your electrical cables to such appliances, so you need to know where they're going to be. A really useful tool that we use is SketchUp. This is a free online software where you can draw your layouts of your van to scale, and you can work out visually what it's going to look like in 3 dimensions. You can also make sure that the appliances will fit in their desirable locations, and then when it comes to actually building the van, you can tape out the floor plan as you've already worked it out on your SketchUp design. So when planning this van, we decided to go with the dinette layout. The seating area at the back is really good for a sociable space when eating food and doing work on the table. The customers are also really interested in cooking, so we're going to have to house a full-size Thetford triplex oven, hob and grill in the kitchen unit, and a large fridge which will be underneath the wardrobe on the driver's side. They also wanted an onboard shower with a hot water system. We like to position this cubicle behind the driver's seat as you walk into the van. We like to have it here so that it doesn't enclose in the living space. In week 1 we're going to focus on 3 things. The first is cutting holes, the second is first fix utilities, and the third is insulating the van. We cut a total of 5 windows into this van conversion, 3 privacy bonded windows in the sliding door and the back doors, and then 2 universal vent windows surrounding the dinette living space at the back. Another reason why we cut the external holes early on in the build is once we get the roof lights and windows fitted, it's good at this stage to do a water test so that we can make sure that there's no leaks on any of the holes that we've cut. These are the larger size in comparison to what we used last time. They're about 1 metre wide and about 38 centimetres high, so we're really happy with these, and it's nice that in the living space they've got the opening window to allow ventilation into the living area. So here you can see the back door window. It's been cut and the rubber trim has been applied. Stuart's just finishing that off on the other window now. Before we put the rubber trim on, we use hammerite paint and a deburr tool just to get rid of any burrs on the metal once we've cut it. I'll show you what that tool looks like now. And you simply run it along the edge of the cut metal and it gets rid of any burrs. We prefer using this to a file. We think it just works a bit better, and yeah, once you've used this you can actually run your finger along the cut edge and you've got no risk of it sort of slicing skin open. So yeah, really good bit of tool if you're doing a van conversion. Recommend getting one of these for whenever you're cutting metal panels. I've installed the Max Air fan and connected up the cables to the circuits. We've used a bit of roofing batten to provide this inner frame, and we ripped it down to be 34mm thick, and that is so that when the 12mm strips are glued and screwed onto these ribs here, if we run a straight edge from the strips onto the frame of the Max Air fan, it's at the same level, so we've got a completely flat ceiling, rather than if we were to keep these at 50mm, then essentially it would push the ceiling down towards the back of the van. So yeah, I'm about to get up onto the roof to start the solar panel install, so I'll show you some video footage of how I'm doing that. So I'm just installing this double entry solar gland. You can see I'm going to want the entry of the solar cables to go into the high brake light pillar, and then I can run them down the side brake light pillar to the battery compartment where the MPP charger is going to be. What I like to do is put this in place and then draw around it in a permy pen. I'll then tape up with painter's tape around the outside, and what this does is when you put the silicone or the Sikaflex on and it squeezes out the edge, once you've removed the excess of that Sikaflex, you can peel the tape away and it gives a really nice sharp finish to that bead of adhesive. And what I've done here is you can see I've cut the first hole for the grommet to sit within, and I've done that using a step drill bit. I've also used my deburring tool to run it around the cut edge. These are the grommets that I'm going to be inserting, which will allow the cables to pass through the sheet metal. And whenever you're passing any cables through sheet metal in the van, it needs a rubber gland or grommet or conduit, just so that it protects the insulation of that conductor from abrasion and chafing. What I'll do now is I'll just get the other one cut out with my hole saw, and then use some black hammerite paint to protect the edges of this cut metal, and then on the underside of the gland I will run some Sikaflex, some black Sikaflex, and then once the cables are run through, I'll place that down and leave it to go off with a bit of downward pressure on top of the gland. So I'm just about to install the hookup. So I've cut this template and I've added on this little spacer here, so I can tell that it's going to be 70mm from that seam. This means that I can repeat using this on other vans, and I've just drawn the pencil line of where I need to now make my cut. So I'll drill a slightly larger hole so I can get my jigsaw, and then I'll follow this cut line and then be able to insert the inlet. Okay, so the hole's cut for the inlet. I'm happy it fits. I'm just going to use the deburr tool, you can see, just to take these burrs off the edges, and then we'll paint it with hammerite. I'm just connecting up the cable, which is 2.5mm Arctic Flex, to the electronic hookup before we install the inlet to the van. And you can see on the ends of the conductors I've crimped on these ferrules, which are like boost lake crimps. I've just used a special crimping tool to do that, and yeah, you strip them as normal. They come in packs of 100. This is for size 2.5mm, and yeah, just recommend so that it gets a really nice termination on the hookup. So you can see completed the terminations and just check them by just giving them a little tug. But really happy they're all in nice and secure. And then this is the cord grip, just make sure that's on, and that will prevent any tension in the conductors being pulled out from the termination. So yeah, get the cord grip on, and then obviously the back cover can slide on, and this is now ready to go into the inlet. One of the key bits of the utilities first fix that we do at this stage is the cable runs. So we're identifying all of the appliances that will need power supply at either 12 volt or 240 volt and running the cables into the van. At this point it's really important because you've got good access to where the wiring loom of the vehicle is going to be. You can see I've got some of the cable runs down here. This is going to be the location of the Sergeant consumer unit, which I'll go into more detail in another video, and the battery bank will obviously be housed in the box seat by the near side wheel arch. Where the cables are running through sort of bends in the metal, or where there's passing through, I've run this 40mm pipe, which is nice because you can run a few different cables inside of it, and then all of the cables are double insulated automotive flex cable. We're running most of the circuits in 2mm thickness, but for other sort of appliances such as the Truma and the water pump, we're increasing that to a 3mm cable. You can see where it passes through metal, like here, we just run it in an extra bit of mechanical protection such as conduit. These are the water tanks that we're going to be installing underneath the van. You can see we've got the accessories here, so the drain down taps, the J-bolts, which will obviously be used with the uni-strut to fix them to the underside of the van, a couple of pipes for the drain down. This is the fresh tank, it's 83 litres and it's got this inlet here, which is a 40mm inlet. We're going to have a gravity fed inlet for this tank, and then the waste tank is 62 litres. You can see we're going to be using the Sargent level gauges for our power supply unit, so I'll show you how I install those now. So you can see the waste tank level gauge is being put in, and I'm now just working on the fresh tank level gauge. So here's the fresh tank, and I've cut back a bit of insulation in the middle of the tank, and I've just marked on some blue tape. You're going to have the negative stud at the bottom, and then 40mm up you're going to have the 25%, 80mm up the 50%, 120mm up the 75%, and then at the very top the 100% stud. So it's an 8mm drill bit. I'll get those drilled in and then show you what it looks like. Looking at the manual, you can see there's a certain colour order that you need to do them in. So the black cable is for the DC negative, the red at 25, yellow at 50, green at 75, and the purple at 100%. So I'll just show you what it looks like now these holes have been drilled. These bottom two here are ready to be screwed in. I've added a washer just because I like to add a washer so that the screw, when you screw it up, doesn't get pulled through the drill hole. So yeah, that's an addition. But yeah, essentially when you do these screws up, it pulls on the nut and essentially forms a watertight seal, because this rubber compresses up and bites into the plastic to form a tight seal. So yeah, we'll get these connected underneath the van, and I'll show you when they're underneath what it all looks like. I'm underneath the van, and you can see these are the J-bolts, and they've been hooked into the chassis 36 centimeters apart, and the uni-strut, which is this piece here, that's going to be bolted onto the bottom of the J-bolts, which will hold the water tanks in place. I've just applied some Sikaflex just into the holes as well, just to prevent water ingress, protect the cut edge of the metal, and obviously to make sure these are more stable as well. So you can see the drain down pipes are insulated in 22mm pipe lagging, and you've got the drain downs just here. And then you can see the fresh tank on the near side and the waste tank on the off side. We've also started on the insulation on the inside of the van. So you can see on the ceiling, Otto has run some closed cell foam strips in the actual grooves of the ceiling, these bits here. And now what he's going to do is over insulate that with some more closed cell foam before the final layer on the ceiling, which is the 25mm PIR insulation. Just using the closed cell foam now to run strips of closed cell foam in these low voids here before we then batten on top of these high pieces, and then use the PIR board insulation on top of that. You can see the ceiling, we've added some 12mm plywood strips to the battens of the van. They're glued in with Sikaflex and screwed using 30mm screws. And then what we've done is we've used closed cell foam over the first layer, and this is just self-adhesive, and this provides a bit of a moisture barrier against the metal of the van itself. We'll then friction fit PIR insulation boards, 25mm, between the two pieces of plywood, and tape up all the seams with aluminium foil tape. So the third thing that we get started on during this week is the insulation and the door cads. The door cads we like to get done nice and early, so that we can begin to work on the actual cladded effect that's going to be on the walls, and we like to insulate the floor and the ceiling so that we can get the floor plan taped out and the ceiling plywood installed so that we can begin to construct some of the cabinetry. So a review of some of the work. Obviously windows are in this week, external features, the hookup point just down there. We started to insulate the doors, sound deadening is in on the walls. You can see some of the cable runs as well, where the battery compartment is going to be down there. The floor is insulated, battened, and the plywood floor is in. And then yeah, we've got the ceiling insulated, the lighting circuit run, the max fan air is in, and also the skylight above the ceiling. We've got the water tanks installed underneath, and we've also got the water filler point there. And then up on the roof, obviously you can't see it because it's quite low profile, but a 360 watt solar panel is also installed. Good progress on week one. And next week we're going to be moving on to more of the structural elements, so getting the ceiling and the walls constructed and installed, and begin to put in the shower cubicle. If you're really interested to see what this van's going to look like once it's complete, then do check out this video of a van tour conducted earlier this year.